It's Monday, June 26th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. First up, we're going to find out everything parents need to know about getting a bus pass for next fall. Then we'll chat with local author Loren Wolf about her new book, Beyond the Bright Sea. And finally, we'll check in with Cape Cod Community College Communications Director Michael Gross. All of that on this episode of Barnstable Today. But first, let's go ahead and get a look at today's top headlines. The Hyannis Fire Department has a new fire chief. The Board of Fire Commissioners voted unanimously last week to appoint Barnstable Deputy Fire Chief Peter Burke to the post. Burke was selected after a 9-month search that included a 2-day assessment exercise. Burke will replace former Hyannis Fire Chief Harold Brunel, who retired last year. The town's Planning and Development Department will request $200,000 in community preservation funds for the Accessory Affordable Apartment Program. That program enables homeowners to create new affordable rental housing units in their unused space in their homes. The Community Preservation Committee will also consider the request during its meeting tonight at 5:30. That meeting will air live right here on Channel 18. The Planning Board will again discuss a proposed 33-unit condo complex at its meeting tonight. The condo complex would be located on School Street and South Street along the Hyannis Harbor. The applicant, Shoestring Properties, is requesting several waivers from zoning and general ordinances. The Planning Board meets tonight at 7 p.m. The Planning and Development Department is working to update the town's open space and recreation plan. That plan is used to identify challenges, potential areas of growth, and priorities for open space. Once approved by the Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services, the town will be able to qualify for state grants related to land acquisition. Residents can be part of this process by taking a quick survey. You can find the survey by visiting the Town of Barnstable's website and clicking through to the Planning and Development Department. Well, up next, we're going to chat with Transportation Director Sandy Gifford. So Sandy, very excited to chat with you today. Before we sat down, we were talking a little bit about Transportation Department. And a lot of people have this thought in their head that you have nothing to do as the Transportation Director over the summer because the buses aren't running, but that is quite the opposite. What keeps you busy during the summer months?
Oh my gosh, it would be nice to have some summertime off on the Cape, right? Well, actually, we have a lot of kids we have to bus, and we do have some summer stuff. What we do is some special education work over the summer, which is summer programs for those students. But reality is it's building the bus routes.
Which this is a really complicated process.
Huge.
It's very time consuming. Do you have an estimate on how many students ride buses in Barnstable Public Schools?
Yes, we have close to 4,000 that ride.
Wow.
And we have over 5,000 kids total population, which is why it's so important for people to get those applications in.
Because you use those applications really to help determine where those routes are,
Correct.
where they go, how
Right.
many kids are on each bus.
Absolutely.
It must be a really tough like puzzle
It
to,
is.
to put
It
together.
is. Yes, and I'll tell you what, people always say to me, do you like your job? Oh, I do. You have to be crazy to like this job, so I guess I'm a little bit.
A little crazy?
A little crazy, you know? It just keeps you really, really busy. It's very, you're looking at geography. This is a huge town where everybody lives. You set up the bus stops that are kind of in the middle for everybody so it's fair. And we don't know you want to use the bus unless you tell us. Other than mandated students, we always make those for those particular kids. But the non-mandated, we really don't know, and we want to hear from people because we want to make sure the stops are fair.
So the earlier parents get in their applications, the better.
Oh, absolutely.
We've already passed the deadline for a reduced rate.
Correct.
But really, you want them in as soon as possible, but the drop-dead deadline to get them in, to get your pass before school starts, would be August 19th.
Correct. Yes, that is so important. I would love to have people who haven't been in already come in today. That would be great. But if you have to wait until then, try not to, because you want to get that bus pass. Your kids want to see the pass before school starts. They always want to know what bus am I riding?
Where's
my friends?
stop?
Yes, absolutely. Who's on my bus? So,
Yeah.
we want to be able to have that ready for parents. So it's really important for them to get that in.
And you guys take into consideration safety when
yeah.
putting together these routes. So you're really looking for the safest place to stop.
Correct.
How do you determine that?
Ooh, that sometimes, one, you have to really know the town. So we already have like a preset of places where we don't stop or we don't set up a bus stop. If it's somewhere new, an area that we maybe haven't had kids in a while, I'll actually go out and look at it and say, okay, what's our criteria? The state doesn't really have a criteria other than distance. So you kind of have to use common sense, and you know, as a parent, I know where I would want my child to stand, you know, and none of them's perfect, and we do have kids who live on Route 28, and as you all know, that's one of our fastest roads. So you'll see a lot of people get mad because they'll say, oh, the bus is stopping every 10 feet, but it's actually Route 28 where people are known to go over 50 miles an hour.
Right.
So
yeah, there's a higher speed limit.
Absolutely.
People always go over, and it's sort of like a mini highway in the middle of our town. So
it is, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, get that application in.
Yes.
What if individuals feel like they cannot afford that $200?
Sure.
Is there financial assistance?
Absolutely. We have a transportation fee waiver program, which is based on the income and how many people are in your family. You just have to give us the tax return, or you know, how you're surviving, what you're living on, and then we go with what the federal government gives us as guidelines. It's similar to school lunch. So I mean, it's definitely you can get free or reduced depending on what you qualify for. So there is help for folks who need it.
Great. So definitely, if you feel like you might qualify, check that out with your office.
Absolutely.
And you guys, just to remind everyone too, you are conveniently located between the Senior Center and Barnstable High School.
Absolutely. Our physical address is 845 Falmouth Road, which is actually right off of Route 28. And I always say to people, if you know where the Senior Center is, just come down that road. We're right there. So
yeah, kind of right in that access road.
Absolutely.
Really.
In between the two biggest schools.
Yes, exactly. It's so true.
Absolutely.
It's so true. So get that application in, apply for financial assistance if you need it. Drop dead date is August 19th to remind parents.
Yes.
You know, I want to ask you this. I know you guys are going to work with a new bus company this year.
Yes.
Tell me about that process.
Sure. It's actually very exciting. We haven't had a what we would call competitive market in a long time. So we've kind of been, not that our current vendor is First Student, they've done a great job for us. We're very happy with them. We just haven't had competition. It's very hard to get land on the Cape. It's very difficult to find a place to park all these buses or service them or have fuel. So we did a little bit different this year, working with the procurement office to get a good set of specifications out, and we actually got 3 responses. So we have a brand new company coming in. They're out of Southwick, Mass, and it is called 5 Star, and they have excellent references. They've been in the business for a really long time. They're all excited. I've been meeting with them, working with them. They cannot wait to get here. They're looking at this as this is our business. This is our face. We want to do a great job. They're very enthusiastic. So it's exciting. Doesn't mean that everything's going to change. A lot of people say, new company, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my bus driver. You know, the hope is that the folks who work here now are the people who live and work here. We want to keep them. Right. So, you know, keep it local, and that's great. So
now, do we know how long the contract is with 5 Star?
Yeah, it's actually, this is a new and different for us too. It's a 10-year contract. So essentially what it is that's more enticing to a bidder to come into because you're making a commitment. So it's a 5-year, and then we have options after that. So that it's kind of like, hopefully we know things are going to go well, and we want them to be happy. We want to be happy with the service. So, but that extended time allows you to get somebody else who may not have looked here before.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, it's great.
Wonderful. Anything else we should be thinking about before school starts? I know we need to have those bus passes on backpacks because it is a requirement.
It is.
To get on the bus.
It is, yeah.
What about, I know that there's always an issue. Sometimes kids want to go home with a friend.
Oh, yes.
Is that allowed?
It is not. So we do have what are called alternate stops, and the only reason that those are allowed, prior to having bus passes, a lot of people thought school buses were taxi cabs. We just went everywhere, which essentially we do, but there are certain loads assigned to each bus and territories. So if it's a split custody, if the student has a job or a licensed daycare, that is allowed. They can apply for that. So, I mean, that's the only reason they can do it. Visits to friends' houses, we didn't know where kids were going, and we really want the kids to be safe, and they can't be safe if we don't know you're on the bus.
Well, and if you have, I would assume too, if you have a number of kids that are slated to be on a bus, you don't want to overcrowd a bus either, which wouldn't be safe. No. So, you can't really, know who's going to hop
Right.
on what bus. So allowing that would just be too crazy.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So I mean, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because we don't want folks doing that. So
anything else we should think about before we head off to school? I can't believe it's going to be summertime.
I know. I want to try to enjoy the summer, but if you get your application in, I can.
Yeah, exactly. So the biggest message today is get that application in.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us, Sandy. We really appreciate it and hope to chat with you again in the near future.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Our guest today, Transportation Director Sandy Gifford. Now we'll talk with award-winning author Loren Wolf about her latest book, Beyond the Bright Sea. So Loren, I am so excited to have you back with us today, talking about your new book, Beyond the Bright Sea.
Thanks for having me.
You've written now, this is your third novel, is that right? Or
it is.
Have you written more?
Well, I wrote another one that has not yet been published, let's put it that way. But this is my third published book, my second one for young readers, although it's really 10 and up, and we take that quite literally. I talk to a lot of people, especially older women, who have read it, who really feel that it's for adults and children.
Well, I have to say, Wolf Hollow, the one you wrote right before, that was published a little bit before this, that was also for middle grade readers, but I'm telling you, I thought it was written for adults. It was such a great book.
I wrote it for adults, but because it had a young protagonist, they decided that it should be for young readers and anyone else who found it interesting, and it turned out.
And as we know, so same with this, Beyond the Bright Sea will appeal to all ages. And such a neat story. I haven't cracked it open yet. I am dying to, especially after chatting with you a little bit about it. But really historical fiction with this book. Talk to me a little bit about the inspiration for Beyond the Bright Sea.
I'm always inspired by the place first, and of course the ocean is an inspiration because I live here and I love it. And then comes character, and I kept imagining this girl named Crow washing up on a beach with a mysterious background. And as I did research about the Elizabeth Islands in 1925, I discovered so many amazing things about that part of the world that found their way into the book, that although I do research after and not before so that I'm more in control, the book was flavored by what I discovered about that part of the world.
Interesting. So you write the story first and then research and make sure everything's accurate?
As I'm going along, I research, but I never start with the research because I find it really drives me too much. So as I'm writing, if I need to know what kind of wildflowers were blooming on Cuttyhunk in July of 1924, I find out. And bigger items too, bigger themes and things like what happened on Pennakees in the early part of the last century, which I knew about, but when I found out more, I was so intrigued.
And see, I never knew about the history of Pennakees Island.
It's fascinating.
Tell me a little bit about it, because it is fascinating, and a lot of people really don't know about it, which surprises me.
Yes, it's one of the Elizabeth Islands, but it's a little more remote. It's just less than a mile off Cuttyhunk. It's tiny, and for that reason, I assume, because it was so remote and barren, really, it was turned into a leper colony in the early part of the last century. They rounded up all the lepers from Massachusetts and put them all on Pennakees. And so and I knew that, but it wasn't until I really learned about it that I realized what a fascinating story it was. And so, of course, it figures very prominently in the book.
Yeah, so interesting. You know, when you start writing a story like this one, do you know where you're going? Do you know how it's going to end, or does it just come to you as you're writing?
I only wrote one book that I planned out in advance, and it was a horrible, tedious mess. It felt like work the whole time. I had a map, and I had to follow it, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like doing it, and the results were obvious. So that'll never see the light of day. But it taught me a valuable lesson, and that is to trust myself and my characters, which I already knew and I should have paid more attention to. So henceforth, I always just started with place, added at least one character with a germ of an idea, and just set that character loose and followed. And I've had really strong protagonists who have led me on an incredible adventure.
And wow, what you come up with some of the best stories. I love reading your books.
Thank you.
Very excited to read this one. Are you going to be out? I know you've been a little bit on tour already.
All over the place, yeah. I have visited many Cape schools and libraries, and I will visit more in the coming months. quite a few actually that are on my website. And I'm going to Chicago shortly for the ALA convention to get my Newbery honor, which is going to be lovely.
Let's talk about that. Let's not just glide over that or gloss over that. This is a very big award. Wolf Hollow actually received a Newbery honor. That must have been such an amazing piece of news when you found that out.
It was surreal. It's still surreal. It's just so hard to believe. So many wonderful books out there, and a lot of this is a matter of luck, being in the right place at the right time. The stars align, and something like this happens. I'm well aware that it's, yes, of course, quality, but it's also just a whole confluence of things, and I'm very lucky to have been in the epicenter of that little confluence, so it worked out well.
Yeah, well, Wolf Hollow, great book. I'm sure Beyond the Bright Sea is going to be another winner. Talk to me about, you have another novel. What was the title? It had something to do with fire. What was
Long
the title?
ago, yes. When I was 31, I wrote Those Who Favor Fire, which is about a town in Pennsylvania that's built on top of a coal mine that's on fire. And I have lots of family in Pennsylvania, and I feel very at home there. So I just decided that was a very, very cool setting, and I really had to try and write something that took place there. So I did. And I'd love to go back and rewrite it, but that's the nature of this beast.
You
don't go back, you go forward. So I have. But yeah, it was my first child, so I love it.
Speaking of going forward, you said you have another book you're ready to work on.
I have another book that my editor has right now. I have not heard back from her yet, so this is one of those times in my life when I don't sleep much. It's like being pregnant, honestly. You're in the last trimester, you know it's coming. It's very nerve-wracking but wonderful, and so yeah, that one won't be out till 2019. We want to give Beyond the Bright Sea a little chance to breathe. But it's done, and I'm starting a new one, which is, if it takes, will be a sort of a sequel to Wolf Hollow.
Oh, wonderful.
Different main character, but same setting, same time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, if anyone is watching and they want to find a copy of your book or learn more about you and your work, do you have a website?
I do. It's lorenwolf.com, but the book is available everywhere, and books are available everywhere. And if you want to book a visit, have a talk, just go on my website, and it tells you how to get in touch with Penguin.
Great. Well, thank you, Loren, for joining us.
Congratulations
on your Newbery honor. So exciting.
You.
Can't wait to pick up Beyond the Bright Sea. We really appreciate you coming in and talking about it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been a pleasure.
Our guest today, author Loren Wolf. Joining me now live on the phone, we have with us Cape Cod Community College spokesperson, communications director Michael Gross. Thank you so much for joining us. Very excited to talk about some of these topics. A really big federal grant is coming to Cape Cod Community College, and this is really targeted to support increased diversity in the nursing program.
It is. As a matter of fact, we are very, very fortunate to be one of very few in the country that has received a $2 million grant over a period of 4 years from the Department of Health and Human Services in the program that's really intended to retain and have students complete their degrees here at the college in nursing and then go on to complete them in the UMass Boston Bachelor's of Nursing program here at Cape Cod Community College. It is really getting to be important for nurses to achieve the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, especially if they want to do hospital work. And Cape Cod Healthcare has made it very, very clear that while they will begin accepting our nurses in as so-called novice nurses until such time as they get their bachelor's degree, they still are really focused on having students go in that direction. This grant does a number of things, and I think it's important for the public to know how much the college understands the real barriers that students have to coming here, one of which, of course, is distance. And distance really affects the cost of travel every day, the cost of actually attending college. It really is more expensive for a student to take a nursing class if they live in Harwich or Dennis or out on the islands than it is if they live in West Barnstable. It's just kind of a common sense thing, but we don't think about how much that could impact students. And then when you talk about Plymouth and on the other side of the bridge, et cetera, these kind of things really add up. one of the things the grant is going to do is going to be able to provide some grants directly to students themselves to help support these extra costs that will help them be successful and not feel so stressed taking the college courses. The other thing it's going to allow us to do is to rebuild our nursing curriculum so that we can bring high school students into the nursing program earlier as dual enrollment students while they're still high school students. They could be taking their preparatory courses, their general education in English and math and the various things, getting them ready to come into nursing if we had the ability to work the curriculum so that they could also get credit for those courses in their high schools. And we have those kind of arrangements in other places around the college, and engineering, for example, and others. So this could be something that really would help more students be prepared once they walk right in the door, rather than having to wait a couple of years or more before they could enter the nursing program.
Wow, what an amazing
It really is.
opportunity.
We're going to be providing counselors, we're going to be providing tuition assistance, we're going to provide tutors. The whole idea is to make it more successful for people in what is becoming a highly competitive and a very challenging course in nursing. The science of nursing has certainly advanced dramatically. In the middle of right now, we have a big hole in our north building where we're building a state-of-the-art nursing teaching center, and that's going to really ramp up what we can teach. But the students need to be ready to accept that new knowledge. And it's a very exciting $500,000 a year pretty much over 4 years really will make a massive difference in the nursing program.
So excited to hear that, Michael. And as we know, there is such a need for nurses in our community. So really, the college is responding to a need here, but a win-win for everybody, really, for the students.
It really is, and I really do need to mention we're very pleased with the Cape Cod Healthcare and the hospital's partnership. This is also a coalition of almost 30 different units here on the Cape, and that includes the Mashpee Wampanoag's Health Service Unit, the Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard hospitals, the Duffy Center, the Barnstable County Human Services. I think the other piece that the public needs to understand is how deeply interwoven are all of the health care service delivery systems on Cape Cod. And here again, part of what we do, we're bringing this together to help our students.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you, too. You might also be getting some new students in your aviation program with a new agreement with Quinsigamond Community College. Tell me a little bit about this agreement.
This is really the very first of its kind agreement between community colleges in Massachusetts. You know, this college seems to have a reputation for doing things that nobody's ever done before. We built the LaRusso Science Center as the first green building ever paid for with state funds, and we put the first $30,000 degree and bachelor's degree partnership with UMass Dartmouth, which ended up morphing into the huge Commonwealth Commitment Program, which is saving students tens of thousands of dollars on going and transferring into bachelor's programs. This one is really unusual in that Quinsigamond Community College, President Gail Carberry and President Cox met about 2 years ago as we were beginning the aviation program. And we know there is a very robust aviation industry right up around the Worcester area, and that was something that President Carberry was interested in, wondering, you know, could we move a piece of the program up there? Could they host some of this? How could this work? Well, just the technical aspects of aviation maintenance training is just too complex. But what we have been able to do, and in fact Friday, President Cox and President Carberry signed an agreement that is going to allow Quinsigamond Community College students, again, this is Worcester, to complete all of their general education requirements, all of the courses that get them ready to come into the academic program in aviation maintenance. And once they've completed them in Worcester, they transfer those credits down to us. They come into the program and go directly into the technical side of the learning process, so that in 14 months, just like our students in 14 months, they can come through and get their FAA certification, and they also can get their Associate of Science degree, Applied Science degree in aviation maintenance. This is the first time community colleges have said, we'll accept your credits. This is how it goes into ours, and your students become our students, and they get the degree while you help participate. And we fully expect, in all honesty, that we're going to have a number of these agreements now between community colleges. This program is such an unusual one and so highly beneficial to the students that if we can create a pathway for students from around the state to come into it, it'll be even more successful. And by the way, we know full well if you're in Worcester, that hour-and-a-half drive one way, especially in traffic, could really be an issue. So we are, in fact, investigating some kind of housing relationship with either existing motels or something up in there, so that when the students are ready to come from Worcester, they may well be able to come into some kind of short-term rental situation so they can complete the program there.
Wonderful. Well, wonderful news, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about the federal grant for the nursing program, as well as this unique partnership. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, we start our second semester of summer courses in just a couple of weeks, so it never stops. There's always something going on.
That's right. Well, thank you, Michael. We appreciate it so much, and look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Absolutely. Bye-bye now.
Have a good week. You too. Bye-bye. Our guest today, Communications Director Michael Gross. Now let's go ahead and find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. Well, are you looking for ways to de-stress and reduce anxiety? 2 free clinics will be held in Cotuit next Saturday to help. The first clinic dealing with anxiety and stress will be held July 1st at 9 a.m. at Freedom Hall in Cotuit. The second clinic is focused on sleep and stress and will be held Saturday, July 1st at 1, also at Freedom Hall in Cotuit. The all-female a cappella group Cape Harmony will be performing in Barnstable throughout the summer. The group will perform every Monday evening at the Federated Church of Hyannis at 7:30 and on Wednesday evenings at the Federated Church in Cotuit at 7:30. For more information on ticket prices and various performances, you can visit capeharmony.org. Now here's a look at this week's board, committee, and commission meeting schedule. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show for you. On tomorrow's show, we'll chat with Chief of Police Paul McDonald. We'll check in with DPW Director Dan Santos and so much more. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.